Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special interview edition of Sorta My Podcast. My name is Vincent Vin The Human, and this is brought to you by the guys over at Tricon. Guys, Tricon is this great convention out in Huntington, West Virginia. $10 at the door. Kids under 10 get in free. I've personally been to a few of them, so I can tell you they're really cool. They're going to have a lot of great guests, media guests, vendors, and artists, much like my guest today. And all of their info is down below, along with our nerd news page, Sorta My Comics, the Sorta My Podcast Instagram, and all of our various subject to change entertainment channels and social media. But hey, you're checking this out somewhere. While here, why not like, comment, and share this episode so more people can hear about our awesome guest today, Amanda Scharf. Thanks for joining me today, Amanda.
Sure, my pleasure.
Now, first, before we get into some of the work that you're currently doing and some of the work that you have done, I'd like to dip into your secret origins a little bit. When did you start getting into comics, and what were some of your favorite books growing up?
It took me a little while to get into comics specifically because just from what I had seen, I was always kind of turned off from the quality of art at the time. And this was, early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s. So like the art in there was kind of sketchy. I didn't really get into comics until I discovered manga, and the art in that was just so amazing. And I'm still really into that. And really just within the past decade, 15 years or so, like it seems that the American comics have really, upped up their game, and hopefully like I won't catch any flack for saying that, or you guys won't catch any flack for letting me say that, but that's just what I feel from, an aesthetic standpoint. I was always I'd always enjoyed things from Marvel, like the X-Men, a couple other things, and Spider-Man, but I also mostly remember those from I mostly enjoy those from the old cartoons that ran on Saturday mornings on Fox back in the day, but that's diverting a little bit. So I've been I've been into comics, ever since I was 15 or 16, I think. My dad made the mistake of taking me to a half-price bookstore, and he regretted that because I begged to go all the time to spend his money, and he was always a big supporter of me reading books, so he could never say no to me. So I have hundreds of books in my library, and I want hundreds more.
Oh yeah, well, a collector never stops collecting, that's for sure.
For sure.
What were some of your favorite manga growing up? What ones really stood out to you?
I read a lot of Clamp stories. I don't know if you're familiar with that studio.
I am not. I'm not much of a manga guy. I read some of the Dragon Ball Z stuff because I was all about Dragon Ball Z. But
right. They've done they have a couple really girly sounding titles. One that's really popular is called Cardcaptor Sakura.
Oh, I actually do know about that.
Yeah.
They had an anime for a while, didn't they?
Yeah, they had an anime, and they've actually brought it back. They've continued the story after concluding it after, I don't know, 10 or 15 years.
I was going to say, that was on when I was in high school, I want to say.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. It's super girly, and I like to try to hide that sometimes because I don't really come off as a super girly individual. So that's kind of like a very big guilty pleasure of mine. Another one that's one of my all-time favorites is called Blade of the Immortal, and I'm trying to remember the artist's name off the top of my head. I'm thinking it's something like, I can't even remember, so I'm not even going to try, but I would have to say that is my all-time favorite.
Very cool.
That I've been reading.
And don't worry about the artist name. We do that on our podcast all the time. I am the worst for it. Especially because I write the show, and for some reason I always forget to write in artist name and writer name and who directed this and whatnot. But then I'll correct somebody on who played what Lois Lane. So
nice.
Yeah. Now, when did you first notice that you had a talent for art?
Probably when I was about a sophomore in high school. I kind of realized at the time I was kind of too dumb to be anything else, really.
Don't be hard on yourself. Come on.
Well, my alternative career would have been equine sciences, and that is a field that you have to be like really good at math, and I am just not really good at math.
Preach it.
So, so I just kind of sat in my art class one day. I'm like, I think like I kind of like this. I think I would actually like to do this for the rest of my life, and that was the start of that endeavor.
Very cool. Now, okay, so you've got a semi-love for comics, you got a love for manga, you're starting to draw. How does this all lead to you working with Broken Icon Comics?
This all led to me, it's kind of a weird, discombobulated story, I guess, but it led to me going to the Columbus College of Art and Design for my bachelor's, and that kind of led me to my current job right now, which I do work as a graphic designer full time. But some companies are kind of picky and kind of elitist. Like, they understand that like a school has a really good reputation, so they'll sometimes some schools will, or some employers will just hire you right out based on the school you went to. Well, the graphic design job I have, they had such a good luck of hiring CCAD alumni, and they saw that on my resume, and I know that they were looking at other candidates at the time, and they chose me. And it so happened I don't work in the same department, but I work in the same building as Todd Beistel. I know you guys interviewed him earlier. We ended up crossing paths at a small indie press event, and he was like, well, if you want to get into comics, come talk to these jerks. And that's kind of how I met Eric and Broken Icon. He had hosted a Tricon up in Columbus one year, and I decided to go. And I kind of just shyly put this little thing of a comic that I'm kind of proud and embarrassed of at the same time in front of him. And I'm like, hey, I like to draw comics, so if you have a place for me, I'd kind of like to join you guys, if that's okay. And that's kind of how that happened.
Awesome. I kind of love that you and Todd, you hooked up with Todd, who hooked you up with Broken Icon, because that kind of gives these interviews a little continuity now.
Yeah.
I wonder if our next one's going to somehow be tied into it all.
Never know.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We did a little ad for Tricon that we'd like to play right here, so let's awkwardly transition into that now.
Where is Odle at, man?
I don't know, man. He's always talking about how he needs to be out of here by a certain time. We make accommodations.
It's already 7:30.
I know.
Whoa! Guys, we had such a blast. What are you talking about?
Did you just come out of the portal?
Yeah, I think we're skipping over that fact.
Oh, there's no time for that right now.
That was uncalled for.
Guys, Tricon.
Oh, okay. What is that? Where is
that Comic-Con? It is the Tri-State Comic Book Convention, June 2nd, Huntington, West Virginia, Big Sandy Superstore Arena.
Okay, well, these comic book conventions are always money pits, man. Can we really afford that?
No. This one is only $10 for admission. Kids under 10, get in free.
Wow.
Yeah.
But is it, okay, that cheap? It's got to be just like boxes of comics as far as the eye can see. Nothing really worth seeing.
No. We've got vendors, we've got artists, we've got some pretty stellar media guests.
Whoa.
There's going to be a cosplay contest. The winner
Who was it?
You got to be there to find out.
Well, let's get our tickets right now then.
Come on, guys.
Let's jump in the time warp.
And we're back. Awesome time travel was had by all, but moving forward with this, you are working on your debut graphic novel, Mallory, right now. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Gosh, I have pitched that story so many times. It's like ingrained in me. It should be written on my tombstone if I should ever die soon. I actually really haven't read too much into it. I've been kind of reading the volumes as I've been working on them, so I actually don't know how it's going to end, and it's kind of fun that way because, I'm learning of it. I'm reading it as if like I were the person, picking it up off my table and taking it home and reading it. But it is, in a nutshell, a post-apocalyptic biker gang war and Mallory is in a one versus all scenario, and she's being pursued and constantly chased by this gang. And gosh, this is gonna sound really bad, but I can't even remember what this gang's name is. I get so into drawing it that I just get into drawing it. The one fun thing about this project is obviously I'm doing the art. The script was actually written by another girl, Jody, and I believe Eric is even going to be setting up a girl to be inking the project, inking and coloring it. Okay. So, it not only stars a girl, but it's, being done up by an all-female team.
Awesome. Well, do you have any other future plans, maybe involving your art or other comics or stuff like that?
I have one that I would like to talk about, but it's still really ambiguous at this time.
Okay.
If you ever catch me at my table, I actually have prints of some of the characters, so feel free to, point out any of my prints, and I'll be happy to talk about that. But I'm a little shy to say anything too much right now. But,
okay.
But I'm really at this point just looking into getting my name and my brand out there. I'm reaching out and taking some big leaps of faith and trying to get out into shows that are much more out of state. Right now, my show and convention range has been about within 4 hours of Columbus, and I'm trying to get into one that's all the way down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm nervous and excited and scared for that all at the same time. And really also just trying to, on the side of doing my illustrative comic work, I actually also really enjoy like much more fine art, like also creating that. So I do paintings a lot and a lot of mixed media projects. My goal is to be able to get those into local galleries and exhibitions here in Columbus. So hopefully as time goes on, I'll slowly expand my empire to more than just what's in my studio. So I'll be creeping out.
You got to start somewhere. Ohio is not a terrible place. I mean, it's not the place, but there are people here. So
it's all who you know. I would never have guessed that there was, Broken Icon comics here in Ohio. I just thought like, oh, nothing ever happens in Ohio, and then you just start asking around and talking to people, and next thing you know is you're drawing a comic for somebody.
Well, let's say this whole thing leads to big things, and you get Marvel and DC calling, but you can only pick one book from one company. Where would you go? What book would you choose? And who would you like to work with?
Ooh,
That's a big question.
It is a big question, but I'm gonna derail you a little bit, and honestly, I think I don't want to. If I were to choose a publisher, I actually think I would want to choose Dark Horse. They seem to have a lot of stories and a lot of creative work that seem much in my direction. Like they do seem to kind of aim for their stuff to be a little more in the manga department. Like I see a lot of manga-esque artists, end up ultimately going over to Dark Horse, and it just seems like they just have a really good range of projects and writers to work with.
Okay. Yeah, that's a first in this series of interviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most people just go along with it. You decided to break the mold. I commend you. Which book would you choose from Dark Horse? Or would you want to do something creator-owned?
I think I would try to want to do something creator-owned. Because, as much as working with Broken Icon has been great, has been a wonderful first-time experience, it's definitely been an interesting adventure working with a script that was not mine or that I had no creative control over.
Right.
That's not entirely true. Let me backtrack. Eric has especially valued my input on a lot of decisions. Like Mallory's design was pretty much all me, and a couple other things. Her bike, which is a big part of the story too, was all my. Well, that was about 50% given to me, 50% me. So that was a nice little half and half. Like, they pretty much told me what they wanted, and I made a few modifications based on outside input, really. It's been a very interesting venture working with material that was already, or that was A, already made, and B, not mine. And I think I could be, I don't want to say anything that's going to like shoot me in the foot here, but I think it would just be a little more up my alley if I could work on something a little more original from myself.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's overstepping any bounds. I mean, like you said, this is a great start, but eventually you got to go somewhere else with it, and why not head up your own thing? But, I mean, it's not terrible to start out with what sounds like a very collaborative process.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one last question for you before we let you go. I know you told me that you're feeling a little under the weather, so you probably want to stop talking soon.
I'm getting out of it. Yeah, it's been a gross 2 weeks.
Yeah, it always is. It's never fun being sick, but it's the weather change. We're going into what some could call spring, but this is Ohio, so who knows? But it said in your broken icon profile that your nightmare is talking about yourself, but it also said that she's often lost in thought when she's not drawing, and often drawing her thoughts. So if you were to draw your thoughts on this experience where you've had to talk about yourself, what might that look like?
It would be a big fart. Like, if you could just draw a fart, that's what it would be.
Oh, come on. I didn't do that bad, did I?
No, I mean, I often say to my boyfriend whenever I'm kind of in a rough patch of life or when something's not quite going my way, like, I just say to him, my life is a fart. And like, I can just hear those little toots just going off all the time.
You've done a great job. Especially this being your first interview, you've done a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Amanda, tell the people where they can find you if they want to check out some of your work.
I'm really bad about being on social media, but my central hub is my website, which is actually just my name. And I tell people the hardest thing about that is just spelling my last name. But it is www.amandascharf.com. And my last name is spelled Scharf. That has links to all my social media that I'm terrible about updating, but I am most active on my Facebook page, which is also linked on that. Like, if you go to my website, I think on the top right side somewhere it says Find Me, and if you click on that, it lists everything. And I think even maybe if you just like scroll to the bottom of the main page, like all my links are out there. And so, like I said, I try to update, but I'm lost in thoughts thinking about farts, or I'm just busy working all the time.
Fair enough.
To really update anything.
That's not a bad thing, and I've always been terrible at Twitter myself. We have a Twitter for subject to change, and I'm just awful at it. So I feel you there. I'm a lot better at Instagram. Instagram is really fun.
See, I'm even terrible at that, and people are just like, just download it on your phone, and I'm like, no, and because I'm really weird.
Plugged into the wall.
I just don't like. I don't like to be connected all the time, and I feel like I don't have to be connected all the time. Like, when I come home, I often just toss my phone somewhere, and I forget where it's at. And I go outside, and I'm outside for like 2 or 3 hours, and people are trying to get to me. I'm like, I don't know, my phone's somewhere in the house. I don't care.
That sounds so amazing for me at this point. But this would all fall apart if I didn't. Well, guys, as always, like this episode if you liked it, subscribe if you loved it, and don't forget to check us out on social media with the links down below, where we're also going to include Amanda's info. Why not meet her in person, though? She's going to be at Tricon on June 2nd. Again, that's Huntington, West Virginia, $10 at the door. kids under 10 get in free. And like I said, I've been to a few of these. For that price, you cannot do better. They're getting bigger and bigger every year. I think they're in their 6th year now, and you gotta come check these guys out. If you're in Ohio, it's not a long drive. So head on over there. It is actually
also one of my favorite shows too.
How many have you been to?
I think this will be my 3rd one actually.
Really? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
What other years have you been to? Maybe we've crossed paths. I never knew it.
I've been there for the past 2 years, so that would have been 2000. My first one would have been in 2016, and then obviously last year was 2017.
You got to. You may have met Bobb and Odle. They were there in 2016, but you just missed me by a year because I set up. My last time being there was 2015, and I was set up as a vendor. We had a comic shop called Sorta My Comics, and so we were there. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Amanda. This has been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. This has been fun.
I hope you get to do more of these, and I'm glad I have broken you into the experience. Maybe it'll be more comfortable on the next one. Maybe it'll be just a light, silent fart next time.
Well, at least you can take, if anything else besides my farts you can take away from this experience, you can at least know in this way you were my first. It was a very special moment because you were my first with this.
Very flattered, ma'am. All right, guys, I think it's time to cue that badass outro music.